everyone. We will call the meeting of the PDC Board of Commissioners, June 4, 2014 to order. Gina, please call the roll.
Chair Andrews?
Here.
Commissioner Dixon? Absent. Commissioner Kelly?
Here.
Commissioner Moles?
Here.
Commissioner Wilhoit?
Here. Thank you. And I was sad to hear that Commissioner Dixon came down ill today, because I think it would have been the first time in months that we had all five of us at the table.
It was actually a child of hers came down ill.
We're all going to be
Home
ill
taking care
after
of her
this.
child, yeah.
That's right. That's right. Commissioner reports. I will start off with just briefly, in addition to the usual city commissioner and mayor's meetings that I attend with Patrick and staff, we had two budget hearings at City Council and did get our budget passed. We will get a report on that later. Also made a presentation at City Council with regard to the changes that we have proposed to the urban renewal districts that's coming forward. That's going through a public process, and I'm sure Patrick will touch on that in his remarks for us to actually approve later on in the year. And attended both all the PBA breakfast and the Mercado opening, which was a fabulous, fabulous event. I think that is going to be a great project for the neighborhood and for everybody involved. And then finally spent a couple of really interesting days in Pittsburgh on the best practices trip with the Greater Portland Inc. folks. And despite the fact that I read all of their propaganda about how close they are to being Portland, Oregon, I'm not moving. Nice city, but this one's still better. That's all I had. Charles, anything for the cause?
Other than traveling to DC with the Portland Business Alliance on the annual trip and the annual breakfast, no.
Kelly?
I did attend the meeting regarding the Vanport project and got the chance to observe Patrick in action, which I think actually the meeting went pretty well. There was well attended and lots of comments and so on, but it seemed to be a good community meeting.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Moles?
A couple of weeks ago, I attended it was the governor's dinner honoring trade, and I don't know the formal name of it. I should have spent a little more time looking at my calendar, but it honored a number of businesses that are involved in trade and promoting trade in Oregon, and there was also a number of scholarships that were given out. So the Portland Art Museum, very nice event.
The ambassadors event. Patrick and I would have been there, but we were having fun in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Patrick, Executive Director report.
Thank you, Chair Andrews. Good afternoon, Commissioners. And since it's been almost 2 months since our last board meeting, it has been a busy time, and you've touched on a lot of these items. I would just want to acknowledge once again all the great staff work and board work that went into the passing of the City Council resolution with regard to our URA amendments. People like Kimberly Branham and Faye Brown, Tony Barnes, and a variety of staff did a lot of work in looking at an infinite number of scenarios for the URA changes. And then a lot of great conversations with PSU. Lisa Alboff is sitting here. She played a tremendous role in helping negotiate our final deal with PSU on that. So just a great team effort, and I think we took what could have been a very difficult process and reached a solution that I think works for everybody. That process will play out over the remainder of the year, so the amendments will not come until later in the calendar year. The budget, when the budget gets presented to you, you'll hear that we are actually going to start the impact of the reduced collection of tax increment will begin on July 1st, though, so it will provide an immediate benefit to the local taxing jurisdictions. In addition to our appearances before Council for our annual budget, and you'll hear that update as well today, we also appeared before Council just last week to to get approval for the Lentz 5-year action plan, another great piece of work which was presented to the board prior to presenting to City Council. Once again, great team effort. Kimberly Branham again, Trang Lam, Kevin Cronin, Allison Wicks, probably lots of others, but I had the opportunity to pinch hit for Kimberly and presenting that to council, and it's quite a turn of events from where we were a few years ago in our relationship with the stakeholders in Lentz. I think we're all kind of unified in our vision for what needs to happen in Lentz and pulling in the same direction. So it was great to be part of that. As Commissioner Kelly mentioned, we had our first community meeting around not just the future of the Vanport site, which I do fully expect us to have some news on in the next 30 to 60 days on how we can proceed on that project and what the new tenant will look like. But we also began the conversation around how we're going to spend the new $20 million in affordable housing money over the next 5 years. So a lot of steps to come on that, but I think it was a good kickoff to that process. People seem to be in a different place than we were 3 months ago on this work. Well, the $20 million in affordable housing money will be another also part of the budget conversation that you'll hear later on. Some other things that happened during over the last 2 months. PDC actually received an Oregon Brownfields Award at the Oregon Brownfields Conference, and so we played a role in helping navigate the environmental regulatory hurdles on the planning and construction of Fields Park. So for that work, we received an award. Colin Polk, who's part of our construction environmental services team, was instrumental in that. So congratulations to those individuals. PDC actually has a long history. If you go up and look on the awards, we have a long history of getting awards for our brownfield work. We haven't done much of it lately, but it is one of the things that has marked a lot of our projects. As Chair Andrews mentioned, we did the groundbreaking for the Portland Mercado, so looking forward to signing the lease with the Mercados shortly, and then they've also announced a de-paving event in July. So if you've been to the Mercado site, there's a big kind of weed-filled parking lot with asphalt in it, and they want to invite everybody to help them jackhammer the asphalt off of there. So that could be a fun event. So we can send out the announcement on that when that gets closer to that. So the event that Commissioner Mullis mentioned was the Oregon International Business Awards. We've co-sponsored that with the Oregon Consular Corps and Business Oregon and the Port and others for a number of years now. And annually, what we do is we honor a range of companies and other organizations that have contributed to both international trade, but also promoting Portland and Oregon internationally. But then we also raise money for scholarships that the Consular Corps gives out to students who have some kind of international study component to it. So it's always a great event. I think was very disappointed to miss it. The companies that were recognized, though, just once again, Nutcase Helmets, a Portland company, they do bike helmets. One of the companies we actually took to Japan with us last month. ZGF Architects, I think we're quite aware of their work. We've, once again, ZGF has joined us on a number of international trips. A company called Shimatsu USA, they're I believe a Japanese-owned company, but they have extensive U.S. operations, including a plant in Canby. Bob's Red Mill, we all know Bob's Red Mill, Milwaukee-based. A company called Met One International, they're based in Grants Pass. And then Pink Martini was also recognized for their work in promoting Portland. I think we all know they travel the world, and everybody gets to recognize them as a Portland-based group. I think you also know that we made an announcement about the proposed sale of the Grove Hotel. We selected the team of NATO Development, Eagle Point Hotel Partners, and Filament Hospitality as the party that will negotiate a sale with this group. I think we all know NATO. NATO Development is a Portland-based developer, but they partnered up with a group out of San Francisco that runs a very successful hostel-type building in San Francisco in a similar neighborhood to Old Town. So we're looking forward to working with them. We think they really do bring the right set of expertise for that property. The property will be sold for what we believe is fair market value, $630,000, no public subsidy as part of the $7.5 million project. So quite a turn of events from a couple of years ago. We heard from the DJC actually had their top project awards for this year, and in the renovation category, the Beam Development received an award for their work on the East Side Exchange building, the Burnside Bridgehead project, the building that we sold to them. So it was great that they got recognition for what we know was a difficult project, but a very instrumental project. We also have, I think last week or maybe the previous week, we issued the RFO, request for offers, on our property at 3rd and Taylor downtown. We expect that to be a very popular solicitation. We hope to get a number of offers on that, and offers are due on June 30th, and we think that will end up being a sale of the property, and we expect development to happen there. And then another bit of news that happened while we were traveling actually is that Oregon Iron Works and Vigor announced their merger, which is great for the Oregon economy. It creates a much larger, more diversified industrial company that could compete internationally, and I think that's one of the things that we need more of in Portland is companies of scale that really can compete. And Vigor has been on a significant growth and acquisition trend, and so this just continues that. So we congratulate them on that, and we've have extensive history working with both companies, and so we look forward to working with the merged company. And then last but not least, the big announcement that happened over the past month was that we launched our next Startup PDX Challenge that was launched on May 20th. Applications are due on June 23rd. And I think, as you know, we've been talking about this for quite a while. The focus of this Startup Challenge is on promoting minority and women entrepreneurs. So we've been doing extensive outreach, both locally and nationally, and we have partners both in the Latino and African American community that we hope will help drum up a lot of applications for this challenge. I think so far, well, I'm not going to quote numbers. We're already seeing activity online. What typically happens is people sign up and they begin working on their applications, and we can track that, but we get a flurry of applications near the end of the application period. The 6 winners will be housed at a building here in Old Town, and so we already have that space under lease. So we're looking forward to that. And then, of course, we'll have an announcement to make later in the summer. Much of my time over the past 2 months since our last meeting was spent traveling, so just wanted to give a quick update on that. I had the great opportunity to go to Colombia with Michael Gerton, who's our kind of international business development specialist here at PDC. I was formally invited to speak at a UN conference on trade and investment in Bogota, really focused on Latin American cities and countries, and they wanted to hear about Portland as a case study for how you can do development but still focus on sustainability. And so that was well received, but we set up a whole week of meetings with both public and private leaders, both in Bogota and Medellin, where the 2 major cities where a lot of development is happening. So we came back, I think, hopeful that we can do additional business there. We were accompanied by 2 other firms, and we were representing some additional set of green development companies. So we did open up some doors for those companies. As the chair mentioned, as well as Commissioner Wilhoit, I was in Pittsburgh as well as DC on those trips, kind of annual trips, both for best practices as well as meeting with our delegation in Washington. And then on Friday, 2 days from now, Michael Gerton and I will leave for 8 days in China for a variety of objectives, an opportunity to speak for 2 separate times at an international low carbon forum outside of Hong Kong and China. A lot of cities around the world will be represented there and talking about their practices around green development. But then we're also going to execute our first trade city partnership with a city called Changsha in China, and this is the culmination of multiple meetings, including visits here. And so we're making the visit to China to finalize the agreement, and then we'll also be spending some time meeting with potential investors, and that's the other side of our international work, is trying to attract additional investment to Portland. Some upcoming events, just to highlight, I look forward to tonight's event where Commissioner Wilhoit will be honored as one of the 3 or 4 Fathers of the Year for the American Diabetes Association Father of the Year Awards at the Moda Center. I think it's Chris McGowan, the president of Trailblazers, Don Kramer, Charles Wilhoit. So an illustrious group, and look forward to his remarks. Well-deserved award.
I paid a lot for it. And Lynn Gust with Fred Meyer.
Oh, okay, great. Yes, thank you. I think next week or 2 weeks, Commissioner Kelly is actually appearing at the Home Builders Blitz in Southeast Portland. So we appreciate you representing PDC at that. And then the next day, Commissioner Kelly will also be representing PDC at the I think the ribbon cutting for the dedication of Bless Field, which is in North Portland. PDC provided a $40,000 community livability grant for that project, which has a tremendous amount of community support. It's really, really special project. And then speaking of our community livability grants, our next round of grants kicks off in July, so that'll be when the announcement comes out. We have $775,000 available in 5 different urban renewal areas. So anybody who's interested should check out our website, but we'll definitely make sure that there are plenty of announcements about that once the program rolls out. This program funds dozens of really great community projects every single year. I think it's one of the most popular and effective programs we have, and out of it always comes some incredible stories like the Bless Field project. And then later on this summer, and we'll obviously put announcements out about that, but we have things like the Dawson Park ribbon cutting, which will happen in July. The Daimler trucks will have their groundbreaking for their new corporate headquarters as well. So exciting time, and of course a lot happening. And then, as I like to at the end of my remarks, I want to introduce both some new and promoted employees. And so we'll start with the new employees, since they're new. We want to be nice. So the first person here on the right is Francis Thurman. Francis is a new member of our financial planning team, which is our budget team. It's the team that Tony Barnes oversees. Francis comes from my old stomping grounds. Francis comes from Chicago, and specifically the south side of Chicago. So we had the opportunity to share some stories of my days working in the south side of Chicago. But he did financial planning at the City Colleges of Chicago, which is like PCC, like the Portland Community College. It's a pretty extensive college network. Francis has a CPA and received an MBA from Purdue University in Indiana. We'll forgive him for that. So welcome, Francis. Thank you. Francis is also a runner, so he adds to our running team here at PDC. And biking, right? He also has a bike now. Next to Francis is Craig Seeger. Craig is our new IT manager, so he's taken over our IT team. We've actually been without a formal head of IT for, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months. So I'm looking at Faye, because Faye has been the de facto IT manager. So Faye is happy to have Craig on board. Craig comes to us from Boulder, Colorado. He was in a similar position with something called the National Ecological Observatory Network, or NEON. So he managed all their systems there. So since their stuff was actually mission critical and had real serious data concerns, our stuff is a piece of cake for Craig. So we're happy to have him here to help with our continued transition. Craig has spent a lot of time in the IT industry. On the private side, companies like, is it Isilon or Isilon? Isilon Systems, Veritas Software, which was acquired by Symantec, so we all know Symantec. And yeah, so we also got Craig to move here from Boulder, so good choice as well. Welcome. And then the last new employee, and I'm going to do my best here, is Merivik Tupaz. She joined us in our accounting team. She has extensive experience in government accounting and was most recently with the Oregon State Department of Human Services. So we're happy to have her here, working on a number of our systems, Portfol, Lawson, and assisting with our audits as well. So welcome. And then the two promoted employees, Kay Little, who I think you remember not so long ago was here as a new employee. He's been promoted to a senior business finance officer position. Previously, business finance officer position, we had a person leave, and instead of posting the position, we simply promoted Kay since he was doing such great work for us. So congratulations, Kay. And then, is Brian hiding? Where's Brian? I saw him come in. Oh, Brian Lord, all the way in the back there. So Brian Lord has been promoted to a senior project program specialist. Used to be a senior administrative coordinator. Brian's been kind of a jack of all trades for us in many respects, and so he's now working in our economic development team, supporting all of our business development folks. So great bit of news, lots of activity on the staff side, and then my last item is kind of a staffing thing, but it's more that the board, just a reminder that next board meeting, the board will be electing your new officers, and since we know the chair is leaving, that will include an election of a new chair, but also a chair, a secretary, and an acting secretary, and that happens on the June 25th board meeting. So I know that's long, but lots to report on.
That's so exciting. We should fill the house for that one, don't you think? Maybe we could charge admission. Welcome, Francis, Craig, Maribek. Glad to have you part of the team. And congratulations, Kay and Brian as well. And congratulations to Charles on the Father of the Year. But if you have to leave at 4:30, just quick question. The items from 8 through 12 don't necessarily have to happen in that order. We could move 11 and 12 up if you want to be here for the discussion of Patrick, or do you?
Patrick's done a great job. That's an easy one.
Oh, don't blow it.
No, we can follow these schedules.
Just about, okay, we'll do that. And I know Commissioner Kelly had another comment as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, you will all recall that Chris Bull Jones passed away some time back, and there's been quite a bit of discussion about how we might honor her passing, and particularly with the interest of the mayor's office and actually particularly the mayor's wife, Nancy. We've had a lot of discussions and have come to an agreement with Patrick that we would raise some money to pay off the debt that June Key Delta House has with PDC, and that PDC would match what we raise. So already we've gotten a few commitments. I can't believe that here I am a volunteer commissioner and I'm going to have to write checks to PDC, but I'm going to do that. So I'm pretty excited about it, and I know the mayor and the mayor's wife are really excited about it, and they intend to make a contribution, and I think it's just going to be a really great community kind of fundraising. So thank you for cooperating with that, Patrick, and we'll have hopefully soon have some news about some funds that got raised.
Thanks.
Super, thanks.
We know they can get $2 million.
We don't need that much.
Okay, next item are meeting minutes. We're going to have to skip the March 19th joint work session because there's only 2 of us here that attended. But we are okay with the April 16th, 2014. So could I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Any changes? Further discussion? All those in favor of approval, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? We now have time, as always, for public comment on items that are on the agenda. I don't have anyone signed up. Make sure that there isn't someone here. Okay. So we'll move on to the action items. The first is consent. First 2 are consent items, actually. The first is Resolution 7051, authorizing the executive director to acquire real property located at 9101 Southeast Foster Road in the Lentz Town Center Urban Renewal Area from the City of Portland for a purchase price of $1 for the purpose of redevelopment in accordance with the Lentz Town Center Urban Renewal Plan. And Resolution 7052, authorizing the execution of a deed for right-of-way purposes for the real property located at Northwest 9th Avenue and Nadeau Parkway and within the River District Urban Renewal Area to the City of Portland. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, on to the regular agenda. It's Resolution 7053, authorizing a loan modification in the Portland New Markets Investment Fund 2, LLC, secured by real property commonly known as the Armory Building, located at 128 Northwest 11th Avenue in the River District Urban Renewal Area. And we have Lisa and Jill. Before you guys start, I want to put this in a little bit of context in that I've had the opportunity to speak with, obviously, staff and commissioners, but also citizens and reporters. And I think, you need to step back and take a look at this action in the context of 2000 to 2003. And that is the Pearl District, which is now seen internationally as amazingly successful and vibrant and has created thousands and thousands of jobs and hundreds of new condominium units, was just beginning to show signs that it could be successful. The Armory was purchased by Gerding Edlin as part of the 4 blocks, other 3 now becoming the brewery blocks. But at that time, it was felt that the city needed to show a real commitment to a first-class refurbishment of that facility as an asset for the city so that the investors and the lenders would step up and do what we call now the brewery blocks. So it wasn't a contribution to an arts organization. It was what we do best, which is lever a lot of other funds, hopefully becoming the catalyst to building a project that brings on many, many other projects. At the time, the city, rightfully so, wanted to make sure that there was a separation of interests between PCS and the building owner. And the building owner is Portland New Markets Investment Fund 2, LLC. It's the organization that we're talking about giving the loan back to. And it's an entirely separate organization. It is an entirely separate board. And as I understand it, the charter for that organization actually requires that there are more non-PCS members, there are more citizen members to that board than there are PCS members on the board. And that board is responsible to make sure that the building provides all of the social and city services that were required in the original charter. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to our very capable staff and get your report.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chair Andrews and Commissioners. I'm Lisa Abwaf, the Central City Manager with the Portland Development Commission, and I'm here today with Jill Chen, who's our Lending and Investment Manager, to present the proposed restructuring of PDC's loans to the Armory project, which were originally made in 2003. And I believe we also have representatives with us today from Portland Center Stage, who are also prepared to make a few remarks and be available for your questions. And that's Chris Coleman, the artistic director there, as well as Creon Thorne, their general manager. So specifically, the action before you today would authorize modifications to the existing 2 loans, which help provide the Portland Center Stage a new home in the Armory building at 11th and Cooch in the River District urban renewal area. Jill will walk you through the loan and the proposed restructuring terms later in the presentation, but as the chair mentioned, we wanted to first kind of take you back in time and give a little bit of background as to why PDC originally entered into that investment. There are a number of plans that guided PDC's original investment in the Gerding Theater or the Armory, and supporting the presence of Portland Center Stage in the Pearl District, and those included both the Central Portland Plan River District component, as well as the River District Urban Renewal Plan. In particular, with rapid redevelopment of the city's industrial northwest into the Pearl District, the Pearl District Development Plan, as approved by Council in 2001, called for the preservation and presence of cultural spaces and institutions within the neighborhood that have been the character of the neighborhood to date. A little bit of history on the Armory itself. The Armory building was originally built for the National Guard and then was converted in the early 20th century into a congregation space for exhibitions and other community events. In the early 20th century, Presidents Roosevelt, Wilson, and Taft all spoke at the building, which is part of the reason that it is listed on the National Register. By the mid-1900s, the building had begun to deteriorate and it was being used as a warehouse. And then in 2000, it was purchased by Gertie Eland as part of the adjacent brewery blocks. In 2003, we were approached and requested to support the financing of the redevelopment of the building for both the purposes of the Portland Center Stage and as part of supporting the broader brewery blocks development. Portland Center Stage, founded in 1988, is one of Portland's leading professional theaters and a regional asset. Per staff's 2003 documentation to the board, PDC's investment provided the public benefits of historic preservation, economic growth, and early on revitalization of the Pearl District as an important part of the brewery blocks redevelopment. So a little bit about what we invested in. The renovation of the Armory was to turn it into a performing arts center for Portland Center Stage, and that was completed in 2006 and introduced 2 new main stages, which housed over 200 Central City jobs through Portland Center Stage to host both Portland Center Stage performances as well as community events. Since that time, the project's also been recognized nationally, from Forbes magazine to the ULI, because it was a unique combination of historical renovation of a performing arts venue that also pursued and received Platinum LEED certification. So that provides you a little bit of background of where was the city in 2000 and where was this building in 2000 in relation to the brewery blocks as it created a catalyst at the south end of the River District. And now Jill will provide you a bit of further details on what the restructuring proposal is before you today.
Thank you, Lisa. As the Armory vision came into being, PDC worked closely with the developer and Portland Center Stage to structure a viable financing package that included leveraging significant amounts of new market and historic tax credits. In 2003, this project was one of the first to leverage these new financing sources. In July 2003, the PDC board authorized up to $6.6 million in financing. In November of that year, as Portland Center Stage successfully raised its initial $2 million, PDC reduced total financing to $4.6 million. In addition, to accommodate the new market tax credits, PDC removed the trust deed as collateral and the B loan conversion into a public investment. As a result, total construction financing was over $28 million. All the financing, including the PDC loans, were expected to be repaid through Portland Center Stage's capital campaign. However, in 2011, as the capital campaign fell short due to the economic downturn, maturity on the loans were extended to June 21st, 2014, and interest on Loan A was reduced to 0 to help stabilize the organization. As the tax compliance period ends on June 21st, the current financing for the redevelopment of the Armory building will unwind. In addition to the PDC outstanding balance of $5.2 million, there's approximately $1.9 million senior debt still outstanding. PDC has been asked to consider the requested modifications to Loan A, largely based on public benefits and to Loan B as the terms were originally proposed and approved by the PDC Board in July 2003. If approved, this modification will allow the Portland Center Stage to build reserves and stabilize operations in a home owned by its affiliated company, the Armory Theater Fund. Since its 2006 move to the Armory Building, Portland Center Stage has used the facilities to expand outreach and bring the community together. The number of theatergoers have increased by 80% from about 92,000 to more than 165,000, and the proportion of younger attendees has jumped from 6% to 17%. Moreover, the Portland Center Stage has partnered with scores of artists and various educational, social, environmental, and cultural groups to offer community programs, mostly for free. It has also provided access and affordability for its performances through discounts and contributed positively to the economic development of the city. In addition to the existing public benefits, Portland Center Stage has agreed to provide a community investment program detailed in the board report for the next 10 years as a requirement for this proposed loan modification. Thank you.
Okay, as following the usual form, we'll have our guests come up and then we'll pull staff back up for questions. So we have Crayon Thorne and Chris Coleman. Thank you, gentlemen, for spending a beautiful afternoon with us.
Very warm room. Hope you guys are staying awake. I had the...
Introduce yourself, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Chris Coleman. I'm the Artistic Director of Portland Center Stage, and we are the light on? The light is not on. Oh, there you go. Thank you. I'm Chris Coleman, Artistic Director at Portland Center Stage, and we are the primary tenant in the Armory. And 11 years ago, I stood with Bob Girding at my side in front of the Portland Development Commission and asked for help with this project. And I would say that it would never have happened if the Portland Development Commission hadn't stepped up at that moment and said, this sounds like a really interesting, if unusual project for us to get involved with. Since we opened in 2006, more than 1 million people have seen a play in the building. More than 300,000 people have come into that building for something other than a play. And that could have been a jazz concert, it could have been a fundraiser for Sisters of the Road Cafe, it could have been a performance by the graduates of the Oregon Council for Hispanic Advancement, you name it, across the board. Of the 165,000 people who saw a show last year, 88% live outside of the city's core. So while the building is nestled in the Pearl District, it would be a mistake to think that only the Pearl District is served by what happens in the building. Of the 165,000 people who saw a show last year, 32,000 saw a show for a reduced price. And that could range from $5 off, half price ticket, to more than 1,500 people who saw it for $5 using their Oregon Trail card, which is more than any arts organization in the city. Almost 7,500 students saw a show last year. Almost 3,000 saw a show for free because they come from Title I schools. All of this stuff, and this is an expansion of work that was happening at the theater before we moved into the building. It was a desire for the theater to be able to pursue it, and it linked very acutely to the desires of the Portland Development Commission and making sure that this was a community asset that reached far beyond just your average theater goer. And when I think about you know, this is a very unusual project for the Development Commission, but Patrick, I hear the words of former Mayor Daley from Chicago in my ears at the National Theater Conference about 4 years ago. And he said, you know, when we identify a cultural organization that looks like it's got the potential to take off, we don't wait for them to come to us. We send somebody out from the city and find out what kind of resources would allow them to grow. Because what we find is that if they succeed, the crime rate goes down in the neighborhood, the property values go up, and businesses around them thrive. And I look back to Scott's, Commissioner Andrews' picture of who the Pearl District was. There was no lease signed with Whole Foods at that point. Most of the condo towers that we now take for granted had not been broken ground on yet. It was a really interesting idea that we were hopeful, that many people in the city were hopeful would take off. And Mr. Girding said, if we can get this enterprise, the armory to happen, it would be the crown jewel of that development, bring in 165,000 people into that neighborhood every night who might not otherwise be coming there, 62% of whom eat at a restaurant before or afterwards. They park in the parking garages around. So in terms of the mission of the Portland Development Commission and catalyzing neighborhood development, spurring economic development, I would suggest that this has been a really good decision on the part of Mayor Katz, who initially supported it, and of the commissioners at that time. And thank you.
Thank you.
Brianna's just here to take questions.
Just to take questions. Okay, I have a couple. Could you briefly describe the relationship between the organization that actually owns the building
The Armory Theater Fund.
and PCS?
Yeah. Many times when a nonprofit entity, particularly a cultural organization, builds a building, there's a separate 501c3 set up as the holding company, if you will, or the manager of the building. There are a variety of reasons that you might pursue that, one of which are tax reasons. In this case, it was largely driven by the New Market tax credit structure. Those tax credits could not flow to a nonprofit entity like Portland Center Stage, and so that separate entity was devised, and it's currently, the board is currently Greg Ness, Tom Imeson, Ben Whiteley, Kelly Sato, Mike Golub. So 2 current board members of PCS, 3 community members.
And so does PCS lease the building from that organization?
Yes.
And manages all of the events, or?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. So you basically master lease the entire
Yes.
building from the organization? Okay. That's what I had. Charles?
Is PCS in financial distress?
Are we in financial distress? Distress is an interesting word.
Well,
I
distress
think-
to the extent that you can't pay your debt?
Well, I think what's important to, the context is important to keep in mind. So $38.6 million campaign, and the economic downturn happened in the middle of that. It's never easy to raise big dollars in this city. And the fact that we've made the progress that we've made, I think, is a great testament to our board and the leadership of the staff. If we had the money and we knew it was a slam dunk, we wouldn't be coming and asking for this kind of reconfiguration of the loans.
Well, and I appreciate your answer, and I've been through the Armory, wonderful facility, great programs. But I guess the question is, are you cash flow positive?
Are we cash flow
Yeah.
positive?
Do you make positive bottom line?
We have had surpluses of the last 13 years that I've been in the city. We have had a deficit, operating deficit, 3 years, and we have
I'm
had
just looking at the last 3. Let's just focus
the
on the
last 3. We have had
years. Are you-
surpluses, operating surpluses at the end of the fiscal year.
Okay. And forgive me, I haven't seen any financial statements for PCS. The reason I'm asking is when people typically ask for debt restructure, they need financial assistance. And that's why I'm asking if you're in financial distress.
And I think perhaps I'd be happy to sit down with you and let you look at the picture, because I think you could probably look at most
I
nonprofit arts
believe you if you told
organizations in
me,
the
whatever you
city.
tell me. So you're saying you made positive earnings the last 3 years?
Modest positive surpluses the last 3 years,
Okay.
yes.
And the only debt we have is PDC's debt?
We have PDC's debt. We
US
still have
Bank debt.
$1.9 million that's owed to US Bank that we have to resolve. And there is still an operating deficit on the organization of $660,000.
And you-
So those surpluses have gone to help reduce the operating deficit. They have not there's no reserves, there's no endowment.
And someone, I guess in the material I saw earlier, there was reference to the economic downturn. And if I remember correctly, in 2003, when it was approved, it was expected that the debt would be paid off by 2007.
I don't remember the year, sir, but yeah.
And then I know we as the commission extended that in 2011, and now it's a zero interest loan, right? So I guess I'm just wrestling, being a CPA and a financial analyst, with the notion of the request for debt restructuring. Is it so that you stay alive, or is it so that your life is easier?
It's because the ability to generate those funds today and repay them is not possible. So the ability to repay them requires more time. That's why.
I think the reason that the action is in front of us now is they have gotten through the time period that the taxes, you can unwind that very, very complicated process that you got to go through to put together a tax deal. So these loans were lined up for all of that to happen, and this is just one piece of that process. Eric, could you, I think can you shine a little bit of light on that as to what's going on in the background here that's causing this to be in front of us today?
Excuse me, maybe we can get another chair up here. I'm Eric Iverson, General Counsel, PDC. Going to your board materials, I think going back originally, the deal, this was one of the early new market tax credit deals that was put together.
The first.
The very first. So when the board first heard this action in July of 2003, they didn't know exactly the requirements of new market tax credits. The first proposal before the board that was approved by the board was to provide $2 million of bridge funding, which didn't turn out to be needed, $2.6 million with a 3% interest rate, maturity at the end of the new market tax credit compliance period, and a $2 million loan that would be turned into a public investment if the organization was able to successfully pull off the deal and finance the operation of the armory. The new market tax, in November of 2003, when it became known what the new market tax credit requirements were, there may be other changes as well, but the two main ones were, in order to leverage new market tax credits, the contributions had to go in as debt. I'm turning to Neil Kimmelfield, who's from Lane Powell, the same law firm that advised us back in 2003. So it was converted, the $2 million public investment was converted to a loan, with an expectation that this board would reconsider it at this time, which we're doing. We also had to give up our trust deed because the lenders at that level could not have a security interest in the property. As this transaction is collapsing, we now have the ability to, again, whatever debt we have left, take a trust deed interest in the property. Now, in terms of, if you have specific questions about how the new market tax credit structure works and restructured works, I would turn to Neil if you had specific questions there.
I was going to ask everyone in the room to raise their hand who understands new market tax credit.
I'm waiting for Neil to raise his hand.
Might be a couple. Yeah. We can talk a long time about that. Yeah. My point is pretty simple. Typically, you forgive debt when there's public value, and we've established that, the benefits over time. The question that I asked was, is PCS in jeopardy if this doesn't happen? What happens to PCS if we do not forgive debt and we do not restructure your debt?
We do not have the ability to repay that loan right now.
Well, first of all, it's not their debt.
I understand it's going to go to them, though, but it will go to them without the debt. The building is going to go to them without the debt. The only debt that will remain will be the $1.9 million that is now.
No, the building still will belong to the same organization that owns it now, which is the investment company. So it will remain a separate asset, a community asset, with a separate board. They pay rent to run it to that board, so they negotiate that piece.
I'm not sure.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's technically correct, but I don't think it changes your argument. It is a different entity that will own the building after the restructure, I think. But it doesn't change the economics of who's.
What's not technically correct about what he just said?
Who will own the building?
The Armory Theater Fund will end up owning the building. Yes.
They don't technically own it now, as part of the New Market tax.
Yeah, it's part of the unwind and the collapse of the structure that made the New Market tax credits happen, is that the building ownership reverts to the Armory Theater Fund as part of the transaction that's happening on the 21st of June.
And as discussed earlier, the Armory Theater Fund is separate from PCS.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, the debt from PDC is being requested to be converted to basically a grant, the 2 million and the 2.6 with the $500,000 of accrued interest will be restructured to a zero-interest loan over 10 years.
Correct.
Okay.
With a security interest, with a deed of trust interest.
Okay. And I don't want to come at you with a lot of detail. Staff is going to come back up, but my primary question for you was, were you in financial distress? And in a circular way, we've come to the conclusion that you're not, but you're not able to pay the debt, but I guess I'm confused on whose debt it is. Who are we forgiving the debt to? Is it PCS? Because
no.
PCS is here
No.
talking to us.
No, well, and that's why,
It's
why
a
don't we bring
little
the
odd
staff
if the
back?
party who's getting the debt forgiveness isn't here.
The debt is currently to a Portland New Markets Investment Fund.
But they're not here.
No, they are not, and it's
Okay.
essentially a special purpose company that is going to be collapsed as part of the unwind. And the unwind Army Theater Fund will essentially own Portland New Markets Investment Fund. And Army Theater Fund, which is affiliated with Portland Center Stage, will own the building. Portland Army Theater Fund, I should clarify, and please, Chris, let me know if I'm incorrect. Army Theater Fund is the arm that is the recipient of the capital campaign contributions for the acquisition of this building.
I mean, is it essentially this to say we'll have an entity where our loans sit, well, defaulted loans, right, they'll be due and payable without any amortization schedule, or any amortization is basically due and payable, but without any kind of deed of trust, so we don't have the ability to take action against the building. So the loan would reside with an entity. We would have the ability to go after collecting that entity, but we wouldn't have an asset to collect the dollars from. Right, is that?
No, that's not,
No, that's-
right now it has a security interest, is what you're proposing.
No, but I'm saying, if we
we
don't
currently-
restructure it, if we do not restructure it, if we do not restructure it, we have two loans that are in default, that are owed to us by an entity. I think that those loans will transfer to the new entity as part of the asset, or is that,
Go ahead, Neil.
what happens to the loans if we don't do it?
I'm Neil Kimmelfield. I'm an attorney at Lane Powell, and I'm here primarily because of what I know about New Markets tax credit transactions, not necessarily all of the financing documents for this transaction. The question is, if the loan is not restructured, what will happen? There are two possibilities. One is that all the parties to these complicated transactions will move forward with unwinding the transaction as they would if it were restructured. The other possibility is that they will take a separate look at it. So if they take a separate look at the whole transaction, if there is not a restructure, it's possible that everything could remain the way it is right now, in which case Portland Centers, or the building owner, the actual owner of the building, which is the one that will be succeeded to by Armory Theater Fund, owes a substantial amount of debt, and unless the overall transaction structure is restructured, that will stay there. So the forgiveness of the $2 million piece facilitates an ultimate restructuring of ownership, in which Portland Center Stage and Armory Theater Fund will be in a position where they have the financial capacity to pay the remaining debt. If there's not a restructuring, they will be exactly where they are now, which
Excuse me, when you say pay the remaining debt, whose debt is that?
that will be the $2.6 million of PDC debt. And
Which is 3.2 now
plus
with
the
interest.
Now, the remaining debt, our debt is going to, if you approve this, be a 10-year note with no interest.
correct.
with no plan for repayment currently. When you said the remaining debt, I'm assuming you're talking about the debt that is being refinanced through Standard. That's the only debt that's going to get paid over the next 10 years. Is that correct?
That is proposed.
Okay.
Is that the Stancorp Mortgage Investors 1.9 million be
Okay.
repaid over 10 years.
But I mean, I don't think, I think that the fact that the maturity date is 10 years from now, the means for repayment will be part of the discussion that we will have going forward in the succeeding months and years. We will be sitting down as organizations to discuss their finances, discuss how this loan, which is not being forgiven, will be repaid within a manner that works within the.
This is in line 5 of the write-up. There is currently no plan for how the extended loan A will be repaid at or before maturity. And I'm being asked to vote on forgiving $2 million of debt and extending $3.5 million over 10 years at no interest with no plan for repayment. And if you look backwards in time, we initially had a $2 million debt, a $2.6 million debt. The $2 million was converted to no interest. The $2.6 million was converted to no interest in 2011. And now we're rolling it again with no plan for repayment at 0 interest. If I'm in the public, I look at this and I say we might as well vote on a forgiveness of the total amount today. Is that a reasonable conclusion for someone in the public to look at this and say, there's no plan for reimbursement of this loan over 10 years. We've had no interest payments over 10 years. That makes sense.
Well, I think.
That is the request being made.
Okay.
But I would.
And I've shared with staff my suggestions on how to rework this, or at least something to consider. And if everyone is fine with that situation, I guess that's everyone's position to take.
And I would note that the part of this transaction includes $3 million debt that will remain to PDC. PDC has helped build the asset that is there, that is now worth $26 million. So we are in the mix if there's ever a sale, if there's ever a restructure, insurable event, that the public will always have an interest in an asset that has value. The other questions about the structure of the note itself, you can.
That's all fine, but as I stated, if we vote yes for this today, we're basically saying we forgive $4.6 million in principal and $500,000 in interest because it's a 0 interest loan for 10 years. That's what it's been for the last 10 years with no interest paid. Is anyone going to disagree with me on that?
Well, I would. I think it's my expectation that in that 10-year period of time, or at least at the end of the 10 years, that it's paid.
It could happen.
We have other loans similarly structured that there's no intent for forgiveness as well. So
It could happen. I'm not arguing with you. It could happen.
And what's interesting is, Charles, I actually went back and asked staff to pull up the minutes of the meetings back in 2003 to see what kind of discussion went on. Guess what? The minutes in 2003 tell you what the item was and who voted for it. They don't give you any of the discussion of what went on at the board level. So I can't tell you exactly what the discussion was as it went on. But we haven't heard, if you've passed ideas on to staff, maybe we should finish with the questions, but I'm sure that
maybe we should look at it, because I'm asking right now, if this doesn't happen, do you go away? And I'm not hearing that you do. I'm not hearing that your loan with Standard and U.S. Bank goes away. I'm hearing that you're still around. And when I see basically a requirement or some connection between this getting approved and you're continuing to provide social benefit as if there's a contingency there, I'm a little surprised by that. I would assume you're going to continue to do all the wonderful things going forward that you've been doing in the past, and the only thing that would constrain your ability to do that would be the financial resources.
So, Commissioner, can I ask if every restructure that this commission has looked at in your tenure has been only when an organization was going to go away, if the
It's
deal was
typically
not
based
restructured?
on financial distress or public benefit. So they're not always going away. And I'll ask you, since you asked me, is a $4.6 million interest-free loan over 10 years a benefit? Did you receive any benefit from getting $4.6 million at an interest-free rate for 10 years?
I think that
Yeah, that's a yes or no?
the benefit of, am I on trial here? I didn't realize I was going to be on trial here.
Asking- yeah, you can- go
I
ahead.
came to offer my thanks for the work that this commission has done. And over the last 11 years, there have been a wide variety of expressions of intent from the leaders of this organization and from the mayors in office about how this loan would be dealt with when we reach this day. And what is in the contracts is sometimes related to what was expressed to us initially and sometimes not. And I'm here to be as cooperative as I can, and I don't appreciate feeling like I'm on trial.
Well, I apologize for that, because you just asked me a question. I asked what I thought was a
And
comparable question.
I feel like I have responded respectfully and as honestly as I know how to your questions.
You have, and I guess it's the expert witness in me. I go to trial a lot, and when I ask someone if you're in financial distress, and I don't get a yes or no.
It depends
but-
on how you define distress, and I could tell you that every major arts organization in this city could sit down and show you their financials and say they are in distress. It depends on how you look at it in terms of long-term survival. I mean, there have been moments over the last 2 years where we could have been a city without a symphony, without a ballet, without an opera company. This organization is not currently at that place. I think the larger question is there a public good, and is the public good that has come out of this investment large enough to justify a policy that says this was not something we should be ashamed of, it's not something we should apologize for. This has been, if we were in Chicago, Dallas, Minneapolis, Seattle, many cities around the country, they would have funded half of this project. So to apologize for forgiving a small piece of it that you made possible because of the investment this commission I think is a smart move. And I don't know how to answer your question about, are we going to go away? Are we not going to go away if you forgive it? I think what I'm being honest about is there is no way for us to pay that loan to you right now. I understand your discomfort with the terms as they're described. And I guess if it's not comfortable for you, you should work with the staff to come up with a solution that you and the rest of the commission are happier about.
And once again, I apologize. We got into conversation. I don't mean to attack you. I would never attack any public party coming forward. And as I stated earlier, the Armory is a beautiful facility. You put on beautiful programs. You always have. I think everyone recognizes the benefit of the Armory. Sitting here as a PDC commissioner, I try to always take a look at what's coming to the public, both in social benefit and financial return. And all of my questions are directed at, if I have an entity that has a financial wherewithal to pay back debt, that means the money is coming back to PDC and we can reinvest it. And if we're talking about housing on a regular basis, and I see an entity that has the capacity to pay back debt, that's where the money might go. So it's not personal to you or the Armory or PCS. It's all about financial return to PDC along with the social benefit that the organization is providing. And my greatest bit of heartburn with this circumstance is I don't know if you have the financial capacity or not to pay it back. I haven't seen your financial statements. But what I do know is someone has asked us to forgive debt, and it's a significant amount of debt, and someone has asked us to restructure debt in the way that leads me to believe it's not going to get repaid. It looks like a grant. We converted the first $2 million to zero interest. Now we're asking for that to go away. I know there were other factors relating to that. We're converting the 2.6% to 0% interest on a 10-year term. Anyone who's looking at history would say no one expects that to come back.
Well, and I would also refer you back to Patrick's comment that if it's not restructured as it currently stands, the PDC has no security interest in the building. So you have no recourse at all. We could do nothing. We could leave you high and dry on it. We're at the table with you saying, okay, we don't know how to pay it right now. It is our intent to figure out how to repay this to the PDC. And you get a security interest in the building.
Can we let other commissioners weigh in a little bit?
Sure.
Well, I would make a couple of comments, and I certainly understand some of the angst that you have about this transaction. I happen to go way back on this. I was on the New Market Tax Credit Community Advisory Committee whose role was really to hold the organization's feet to the fire about doing the community things that the New Market Tax Credits have as part of their goal. And, you know, my observation over time is that you guys did a very good job of doing that.
Thank you.
So that's making me, you know, and I see the public benefits, so that's why I'm, you know, inclined, even though, you know, it is some amount of discomfort to support this. I would like to know that there is an intent to pay that debt, even if it's 10 years from now.
And I think that is the obligation that we're agreeing to by this restructure.
Yeah. And I hope that gets into the record in a way that we can now look back on the discussion 10 years from now, and then look back and say it was real clear that was the intent. So I'm going to vote for this. I just, you know, at the same time, I understand your distress.
Commissioner Mullis?
Well, I got caught in a bit of a time crunch earlier this week, and I wasn't able to make my briefing as scheduled, but I came in a little bit early and spent some time with Eric and Jill and went through some of this stuff, but I didn't have the time to read this in depth like Commissioner Wilhoit has, I guess. I'm comfortable with the concept. The one thing that I'm a little uncomfortable with is, and I haven't read the language, so excuse me for not doing my homework in advance like I should have, but the possibility that at the end of 10 years, we're not going to get the loan paid back. I mean, if this deal is to convert part of it to the public investment and then the other part to a loan where we're going to get paid back, then I'm fine with that. If we're not going to get paid back, then I'm not comfortable. So can somebody shed a little more light on that and how that's going to work?
Well, I would say exactly what I just said to Tom. I mean, what it looks like to me we're signing to do is obligating ourselves to pay the loan back. And that's why we're, you know, agreeing to the security interest in the building.
So the loan, just, I mean, so it's a loan. It'll be documented like a loan. It'll have it'll be legally required to be paid back. I understand that it doesn't preclude a future request to forgive. But, you know, I think the other thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, this will get paid back through a capital campaign. It's not going to get paid back through cash flow.
Right.
So it's never going to be structured like a typical loan where you have regular debt service payments because that's not the way these capital campaigns work. So yes, it's quite a generous term in terms of 10 years, but I think the legal documents will be there. The record of this conversation will be there. Unlike previous minutes, Gina is actually typing up your conversation. So the intent will be there. And so, you know, they'll be in a position in which they'll have to start to plan how they're going to raise the money to pay this loan back. You know, that's why it's structured this way. It's why the original loans were, if you look at the original loan write-ups, they make specific reference to paying back the loans through capital campaigns. That's the source of repayment. So it's not traditionally underwritten like you would a different loan where you look at the cash flow to see if it's there. So that's why you don't have that kind of payment schedule. And that's how they pay down the debt that, I mean, I don't know, I forget where the U.S. bank loan started, but that's been paid down.
It was 8.7.
Right, so that's been paid down from 8.7 down to 1.9. They fell short, so you know, we're giving them more time to do that. But that's how it would happen.
And I think what I heard you say earlier was, although it has shown a positive operating result for the last 3 years, you're still sitting in a situation where you've got basically negative net worth of over $600,000 from previous losses.
Right.
Okay.
And if I follow up, if I can, Scott, and I really appreciate Commissioner Wilhoit's diligence, and he digs deep into this stuff, and I think that serves his board well, and I think it serves the public well. And it's a process between the public good that it's created, and there's no question about that it's been a success, and you know, the value of people, you know, coming in and spending money and going to dinner and foot traffic at night, and that's all wonderful stuff. but, we get looked at for the decisions that we make, and forgiving debt or postponing it is always can have controversy, and it can be uncomfortable. But I would just want to go on record one more time, is that I'm in favor of how this is structured. I would just really hope that in 10 years, whatever Board of Commissioners is sitting here gets a report from the staff saying this has been paid in full. It was successful when you came to us in 2014 for a restructure. That was really helpful and helped get us to that point. And now in 2024, we've hit that next successful mark, and we've paid PDC back according to the terms of that loan.
Okay, what I'd like to do is let everybody but staff sit. Thank you for your help today, and Eric, and bring staff back up, because I think Charles has a couple more questions. And
Thanks again.
Again, Charles, I'd love to hear, if you've got ideas about how we might modify this, that's why we have these discussions.
Can I just clarify one thing? And because this is one of the rare instances where we have this kind of debate, and I think it's great at the board, these things come to you under my name for a reason, because I'm the one who signs off on what gets recommended to the board for approval. So staff does this work generally at my direction. So Jill's done what we've asked her to do, and other staff. So if you have questions about why we've recommended something, I'll answer the question. If you want to ask how it was analyzed or recommendations, that's great. But I mean, she's really done, and other staff have done what they've been asked to do. So I hope we can kind of just clarify that. I'm happy to take responsibility for any aspect of it that you disagree with, but that's my responsibility, not hers.
I'm always tougher in the briefings than I am publicly. Come on. I only have one more question.
Fire away.
It's an easy one, too. I don't know, I can't remember exactly when I came to the commission, but it's been 7 or 8 years.
2005 or 6.
Somewhere around there.
It's 6, because 2015 will be 9 years. So.
Okay.
And I may have seen this, I don't know that I've ever seen a summary come to me that says there's no plan for how something is going to be repaid. I don't recall ever seeing that, and that alone, and I'm directing it. I'm directing it over there. I've never seen that.
No, I think it's probably an error. If you look at the previous write-ups.
How do you vote on that?
If you look at the previous write-ups, it was mentioned that it would come from capital campaigns. So we should have been more explicit about that.
That's what you call $1 million question when you're in court? I've never seen that.
But once again, the board can update the terms of a deal, the resolution, right? So I think we're putting into the record now what you believe is missing from our write-up.
Okay, I don't know how you can vote yes on that with that line in there. I've never seen that. See, I got you, now you guys don't have anywhere to go. See, that's how you win in court. Jeez. It's quiet in here. I've never seen that.
Can we amend the write-up?
Challenging anyone
Well, I
to
think-
present information to make me comfortable with that
I think
line.
what they were trying to say is
We can amend the write-up.
I think what they're saying, Charles, is that there is currently no strategy behind a capital campaign to get this done. It doesn't say that there is no hard and fast plan at this point to get it
Okay.
done.
So there
When you're a building guy, you ever sold a building and say, we're never going to finance that?
No, but when I come to a bullet loan, I got to deal with it.
All right,
Right.
that was my only question. You're off the hook. Thank you very much. I apologize to all parties in attendance if I came across as being disposed in the wrong way towards the Armory. I love the Armory. It's a beautiful building. I love the services and the activities. This is a financial decision along with public benefit. In my opinion, there's a lot of free interest that's gone on for 10 years. That's a lot of benefit for someone to receive. We're forgiving $2 million, $4.6 million, depending on how you look at it. That's money that could go to other people and other services. And I've been here too long. We've taken a lot of hits for not doing enough in housing, not doing enough with the homeless. That's $4.6 million. And if someone can tell me they can't pay it, I may look at it a little differently, maybe not, but that's a lot of money. And that line alone would give me, if I knew nothing else, That line alone would make it hard for me to say yes.
Well, again, I think that they did tell you, they've got,
We can, but I don't
they've
think
got
it
an
needs to.
operating
I don't think
deficit
that's
of
the right way to record this. I
$600,000.
think the
I
right
mean, they're not sitting on a lot of cash.
Yeah, I saw a lot of organizations listed that have benefited from their services that would love to have $2 million, and they would do something different with it.
We can add a memo to it.
A lot of nonprofits.
I'm sorry.
So, I'm done.
We're just trying to figure out how to update the record to show this. I think the minutes will do that. We will have detailed minutes so that whenever this gets pulled, we can add a memo to this. I think I don't think it's fair to update the write-up. I think we should, if we want to do something more than minutes, I think staff should write a memo that reflects the direction of the board, and we can put that into the file so that it sits in the file. This was the direction that was given by the board at the time of approval, until that'll be in addition to the minutes.
Hey, I'm comfortable with my vote.
Okay.
I would be comfortable, Patrick, if that's something that's doable to put in the
I-
file that says the intent of the board is through capital campaigns or whatever way they are going to raise that money so that loan is paid back in 10 years.
So is there anything stopping us from having as part of our approval of the resolution or request that say they come back to us in 2 years with a plan to raise the money?
No, you can add whatever you want.
So let's get a motion on the resolution, and then you can make a motion
Not gonna
to
make it.
amend.
The resolution.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
I think we need a motion on a resolution, an amended resolution.
Well,
I would suggest that you have the first motion to amend the resolution to have in 2 years the organization come back with an approved plan. And then, if you agree, that will become added to the resolution, then you add the rest of the resolution.
I'll make that motion that in 2 years, that there's a plan presented to the PDC Commission in regard to a capital campaign to retire this debt.
okay.
And that the intent is to have it paid in 10 years.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Second. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the amended resolution? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Nay.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the resolution as presented with the amendment.
You may. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
You've got it.
Thank you, Charles.
Wait, do we have his vote recorded?
I'm a no.
Is it no for both?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta run.
All right,
Glad I was here.
thank you.
I'm I'm just pleased that we had a little bit of a controversy because so many of these meetings are just,
Every now and then, or you're not working.
Boy, I came within 3 weeks.
June 21st is not 30 days.
Okay, the next item, and we are behind, is an action item, Resolution 7054, authorizing purchase and sale agreement to convey .19 acres of real property in Central Eastside Urban Renewal Area to Block 76 LLC for $336,000. Eric and Geraldine.
Good afternoon, Chair Andrews. My name is Eric Jacobson,
And I'm Geraldine Moyle.
and we're here to present to you the last PDC-owned piece in the Burnside Bridgehead to be brought to you for approval of a purchase and sale or development agreement. We've been working on the Burnside Bridgehead for more than 15 years, and so this is a very important milestone. So the request we're making of you is to approve Resolution 7054. It will sell this parcel for its fair market value of $336,000. And our development partner is Block 76 LLC, which is a special purpose entity created for this transaction, and it's managed by Key Development. And to remind you, Key Development is also our development partner on the adjacent property called Block 67. And just to give you a quick update on the status of that project, it's been in the news recently. This is an article that appeared in April's Portland Monthly. It's being noted as really advancing the design standards in Portland. We're scheduled to close on that transaction this Friday, and Key Development's planning to begin construction in August. So this is a really exciting time, and this is partly why they expressed interest in the adjacent Block 76W that we're here to talk about today. And how we got connected to Key Development has a lot to do with the Burnside Bridgehead Framework Plan, and that has a lot to do with Geraldine, so she's going to talk a little bit about that.
So just to give you an overview of where we've been over the last few years, in 2009 we created a Burnside Bridgehead Framework Plan, which set the vision and the direction for the future of redevelopment on the site. And within the framework plan, we created an intention to promote further development in the Central East Side with trying to catalyze immediate development on the site rather than waiting for larger development, complementary uses that create a more of an 18/6 atmosphere and providing the amenities that were not yet provided in the district and the area, and development that supported the entrepreneurial focus of the district. Once we had the framework plan set, we entered our partnership with Beam Development on the East Side Exchange Building, which is the existing building on the site. And then we issued a request for interest in 2010 for the remaining parcels. Key Development was selected for Block 67, which is the project that Eric just referenced. And in addition to that, as you know, they were selected with an additional RFP for Block 76 West. So with this, we actually have development on every single parcel of the Burnside Bridgehead sites. Block 68, again, was the East Side Exchange. Block 67 and 76 West is the parcel we're talking about today with Key Development. Block 75 with Block 75 LLC. And then the one that most recently came before you previously was Block 76 East, which is the Dumbbells with Guerrilla Development. The transactions that have occurred over the past few years have all been market rate. So other than Block 68, the framework plan set this stage where we were able to actually get sale proceeds from the remaining parcels that then we're able to reinvest in other projects with about $5.2 million projected. There's a mix of uses now on the site that complement and enhance Produce Row in the Central East Side with about 198,000 square feet of office and commercial and about 345 residential units. And finally, since the initiation of development on the Burnside Bridgehead, there's been many other projects that have been active in the surrounding area. Stark's Vacuum is under construction. The Templeton Building is also under construction. New Seasons Commissary, which is just south on the of the west of the Burnside Bridge. Olympic Provisions, and then there's several other projects up and down the Burnside Cooch corridor that have kind of spun off of our initial development in the Burnside Bridgehead.
Thank you. So with that, we'll turn to the property. This is the smallest of the parcels in the Burnside Bridgehead, and what you should take away from this is that it's a small parcel. It's an island parcel that was created by the extension of Cooch Street through Block 76 when the Burnside Cooch couplet was constructed a few years ago. So when we originally bought the property, it was a full block, and it's been cut in half, basically. And what we're here to talk about is the smaller of those two pieces. It's also constrained by its slope and by a slope easement that we granted to the Portland Bureau of Transportation that basically the soil on the parcel helps support Cooch Street. There's also some support structures on the south portion of the property. You can see one of them, but there's also additional structures under the property that you can't see that help support the Burnside Bridge. All these things create constraints to developing the property. As I mentioned, its appraised value is $336,000. So here's a picture of the property taken from the Burnside Bridge just to give you a sense of how narrow it is. It's only 50 feet wide and how sloped it is. So it really presents a challenge to developing it. The good news is that Key Development's come up with a really creative solution. They're proposing to build at least a 2-story or a 3-story building on the property of about 20,000 square feet. They're planning to invest about $6.5 million in that project. And as shown, so on the upper left-hand side of this slide, you can see that's what the property is going to look like as you approach the property from Cooch, heading westbound. And then on the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, that shows Northeast 3rd Avenue looking south towards the Burnside Bridge. And what's happening is by Key Development controlling both sides of that property, they're going to be able to develop it in a cohesive manner that really makes that street work on both sides. So as I mentioned, the property is sloped and it has a slope easement on it. One of the developers' tasks during the due diligence period was to conduct a geotechnical study to evaluate what it would take to develop the property. On the left-hand side of this slide, highlighted in yellow, this shows the property in plan view, and then highlighted in yellow is the extent of the slope easement. It extends to about 60% of the property. And what that means is the portion of the property that's not highlighted in yellow is the portion of the property that could be developed without taking any extra special measures. As you can see, it's a small portion of the property. If we really want to take advantage of developing the full property and really creating that gateway, it means cutting into that slope easement and taking extra precautions. And what that study showed is that extra soldier piling is going to be required adjacent to Cooch Street. And on the south portion of the property where I mentioned there's those support structures supporting the Burnside Bridge, there's going to need some cantilevered shoring on the building wall. The sum total of those extraordinary geotechnical costs is about $361,000. On the bottom right-hand portion of the slide over here, that is a view of the building in a section view where this is Cooch Street over here. And you can see that the second floor of the building is going to really front on Cooch Street here. And then the first floor of the building is going to front on 3rd Avenue. So it's that 2-level building cut into the slope that's going to create that positive gateway. So here's a summary of the financial terms of this transaction. They're summarized as an attachment to your resolution. But the purchase price is $336,000. The developer will provide us with a 10% earnest money payment. We're going to hold the purchase price in an escrow holdback account, and the developer will be reimbursed from that account as they incur those extraordinary geotechnical costs. We've included a look-back provision that allows for repayment of up to all of those reimbursement amounts within 5 years if there's any capital events and where the value of the property exceeds our current expectations. In return, the developer is required to build a minimum 2-story building with ground floor commercial uses fronting on both Cooch and Northeast 3rd Avenue. Developer is responsible for compliance with all environmental laws. And in terms of the milestones, it's a fairly short transaction period. We're expecting the developer to close on this within 90 days. As I mentioned, they're expecting to break ground on Block 67 in August, and they're expecting development on this property to occur simultaneously. And then finally, PDC reserves a repurchase right if the developer does not commence construction within 3 years. So the public benefits of this transaction are really activating the Burnside Bridge. This is if you're a pedestrian coming to and from the Burnside Bridge or on a bicycle, this is the first property you're going to encounter going to and from the bridge. And so it's a really important gateway site, and it's important to activate it. This really advances the Burnside Bridgehead Framework Plan. The development of the property will generate about $55,000 in annual property taxes to the taxing jurisdictions. And finally, it will comply with the PDC equity policy and the green building policy. And on the equity policy, I just want to mention, as I mentioned, we're fairly far along on the Block 67 transaction. And the development team has really done an outstanding job on this piece of it. They presented us with a business and workforce equity plan. And the primary contractor is Anderson Construction, and they've done a great job of outreach and trying to find certified firms to partner with. And right now, they haven't completed all of their bidding, but they're already at 22% of total construction costs going to be through certified firms. So that concludes our presentation. Again, we're asking you to approve Resolution 7054. And if you have any questions, we're prepared to answer them. Oh, I just want to also say Jeff Pickart, principal from Key Developments, here in the audience in case you have any questions of him.
Okay. Well, when I looked at this plan, I never thought that this piece of property would get developed. 20 to 30% cross slope. It's holding up Cooch Street. God bless Key Development. and I hope it works.
Is that a motion?
I just want the one thing that I had a hard time understanding is this. If capital events happen within the first 5 years?
Correct.
After it's completed? So if they finance out and plus, so let's say the project costs $5 million. Year 3, they refinance for $6 million, we get 10% of that. Or they sell it for $6 million, we get 10% of that.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I understood that point. That's the only questions I have. I honestly think that if these guys can't make this work, it's not going to work. Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
John?
I don't really have any questions. Yeah, it's a pretty unique proposal for a really strange piece of land that otherwise could sit there with nothing on it for a long, long time, so.
Absolutely. Okay, so I will
Bye, everybody.
look for a motion to approve Resolution 7054, authorizing purchase and sale agreement to convey 0.19 acres of real property in the Central East Side Urban Renewal Area to Block 76 LLC for $336,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, and
Yeah,
good luck.
thank you. Good luck. Echo chamber.
Okay, next item, action item, 3 action items, but all under one report. And Kate, as always, will be bringing us up to speed. This would authorize a contract with the City of Portland for the purpose of operating and administering the Economic Opportunity Initiative program during fiscal year 2014-15, authorizing a subrecipient contract with Work Systems, Inc. to implement Economic Opportunity Initiative Youth Workforce Development Services during fiscal year 2014 and 15, and authorizing a subrecipient contract with Work Systems, Inc. to implement Economic Opportunity Initiative Adult Workforce Development Services during fiscal year 2014 and 2015. Okay, why don't you introduce yourselves, and we're happy to have you here. Thank you for spending the time with us. And sorry, we had so much fun with the previous item, we went over a little bit. We won't be that hard on you.
My name is Ime Atuk. My company is Laugh Cry Love Entertainment, and I'm a MISO client.
My name is Jordana Pierce, and I am currently working for Virginia Wolf Dog Daycare and also in a Endangered Youth program.
So a little bit about how MISO has helped me out. Just to really having they've taught me how to look at business properly. I thought I understood business, wasn't really road tested, had some great jobs, made some good money, but things changed and that goes away, and it didn't have any control, and realized I didn't really have the foundational building blocks to build a business, and just how to properly write a business plan and really go about financing all those different things. And so MISO has just been a wonderful resource of road testing, of asking you the difficult questions. Well, why will this work? Why do you think it was going to work? Or do you even need office space? Why not just use this? And so it's been a wonderful resource for me, and now I'm in the process of officially launching my business. Launched the website the other night and have a few clients, and it's growing. So it's been a wonderful thing.
Thank you.
When I was at about the age of 14, I was a homeless youth in Oakland, California, and I really didn't have any notion to change that whatsoever. It seemed fun at the time. When I came here to Portland, Oregon, I was introduced to the PAVE program and New Avenues for Youth, and they showed me what they could do. The Summer Works program, the job training, and the shelter, everything was so amazing. I just didn't understand how I could say no. Now it's been about 5 years later. I am now a full employee, part-time, on-call for Virginia Wolf Dog Daycare. During the weekends, I'm now running with landscaping and house maintenance on the weekends with my family. And I'm also looking forward to my second term now of college, as well as going to a new internship with their summer work program. They've been amazing for me, and they gave me opportunities I didn't know I had the chance to get past.
Do you want to talk about what you were interested in doing this summer? Because I think that there are a couple of folks on the council that might be excited about that.
Summer Works came and they offered me an internship, and they said, well, it's 108 hours, and that sounded wonderful, but then they said, pick. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to work? We have certain partners. Do you want to do retail? I chose construction. I'm really good with my hands. I'm really good at building things, and I've always wanted to be on a construction crew. I just always thought that I wasn't too big for it. And now I get my chance.
That's
I get to be on a
fantastic.
crew.
Good.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's really helpful to us to get a chance to see real people who go through these programs and to have it reinforced that they work.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from my fellow?
I just, I mean, my company's worked with a number of those programs over the years and had some pretty, favorable experiences, so.
Great. Thanks and good luck.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Go get 'em.
Thanks for coming in. Good luck
Thank
to
you all for your time very much.
Thanks, and I want to also appreciate and thank you for coming and sharing your story. It really is great to see, we sit behind computers and manage contracts and how are things going. We don't very often get to see the real businesses and people who are really touched by these programs. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Great. And I'll note that EMA just passed out, is it like a business?
Flyer. It's a business card / flyer. So should you need any web commercials, business profiles, anything media, visual related, I can help with that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Heather and I now will give you a little bit more of a presentation on EOI itself. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm kind of excited about this situation right here, so I'm going to
Yeah, you like that? Oh, I'm glad you like it. So I'm Kate Dean. I am the manager of community economic development here for the Portland Development Commission. And with me is Heather Ficht, who works for Work Systems Incorporated, and she is the director of youth services. You can correct me if I got that wrong. And we are, Chair Andrews did a good job of summarizing what the actions we're asking you to take today. We're going to give you a little bit of an overview and reminder of what the Economic Opportunity Program is. We'll go a little bit deep with Heather here on youth workforce development, just to give you a little bit more flavor about what that program is. We've now had WSI administering our youth workforce development dollars now for, this is our second year. And WSI also administers our adult workforce development funds. The third component of the Economic Opportunity Initiative is microenterprise development. So 3 components, really with the overall goal of raising the incomes of the individuals who are touched by this service. And all of our work is really done through our nonprofit providers. What I'd like to do is just tell you a little bit about some of the results and work from microenterprise and touch on workforce development. Heather will go deep, and then I'll come back and summarize the financial transaction. So our microenterprise development program, as I mentioned, PDC runs that program, administers it directly. And we do this in concert with our small business development program. Together, these businesses, these 2 programs over the past year have served over 400 small and micro enterprise businesses. We have specifically designed this program to reach and assist underserved small businesses and aspiring entrepreneurs. 96% of the businesses enrolled in the program have 5 or fewer employees, and 91% of the enrollees in this program have incomes at 80% or below of the median family income. The focus is on capacity building of these fragile businesses through technical assistance in areas of business planning, marketing, finances, and other core business skills. This year, we have delivered 13,000 hours of technical assistance. Actually, we haven't, our providers have. And about 63% of the people touched by this program are people of color. This is just a listing of the wonderful technical assistance providers that we work with. I'd also note that we are really trying to build this community, as Heather taught me this term, as a professional learning community. So we come together about once a month, really, and have tried to refocus our work with our providers to be around sort of mutual training of one another, mutual problem solving, to try to really elevate the capacity of all of the technical assistance providers and have a high degree of professionalism. I would note that in this year, PDC will, from a microenterprise and small business perspective, will be putting slightly more money into microenterprise and small business development through the enterprise zone. And that will really allow us to better layer our services within our NPI and Main Street areas, another program that PDC operates. I would also note that Morgan Masterman took over this program administration in the fall of 2013, and she's doing an awesome job. In terms of workforce development services, back in 2012, we took the step of beginning to co-invest our dollars with Work Systems Incorporated, and we started with the youth program. Heather and I forged, I think, a pretty good bond, and sort of based on the confidence of that bond and the relationships that we developed, we took the step of investing our adult dollars last year with Work Systems Incorporated. Through those two programs we serve this year, they have, through their providers, served a little over 1,100 people. Nearly 68% are individuals of color, and most have incomes that are at 30% of the median family income and below. Core services that are developed, Heather will touch on them in her part of the presentation. These are our workforce development providers, and I'd like to just give you a little bit of a flavor for what's been done from the adult side just in the few months that WSI has had the program. Bear in mind that this program really started almost from scratch last July. In that time, they have enrolled over 400 individuals. Over 100 vocational and occupational skill trainings have occurred. 20% of the individuals who enrolled at the time of enrollment, they were employed, making roughly $12 an hour. And at this point, about 44% of the individuals are employed, making slightly more than $12 an hour. Over time, we would hope to see those numbers increase as more skill and occupational training is attained. All right, hit it, Heather.
All right. Well, I'm always excited to talk about the youth programming and the transformative programming for the young people in our community. And I could talk about this for hours, but I will not because I realize that we're at the end. So really, what I wanted to, I'm going to play with this for a second, this pen. These outer areas, do I just touch them?
Yep.
Really outline the challenges in our community around workforce development for young people. There are very limited opportunities for young people to work. We're at the lowest employment rate for young people nationally in recorded history. That means that young people are not having the opportunity to learn how to work by having a job. In addition, that we have 11,500 young people between the ages of 16, 20, and 24 in our two-county region, Multnomah and Washington counties, who do not have a high school diploma or credential of any kind and are not in school. This is a problem. We lack a homegrown talent pipeline that's robust. We import much of our talent, and young people need to have access to career pathway employment. So these are the kind of the barriers that we're trying to address through this Career Connect network. And the Career Connect network, these are our service providers that are within the City of Portland that we co-invest in with Portland Development Commission. We actually have a network of 11 programs across the two-county region, but these are the particular providers within the City of Portland that provide services that we co-invest in. And it's a POIC is Rosemary Anderson High School is the other name that it goes by. It's right by PCC campus in Southeast, yeah. So it stands for Portland Occupational and Industrialization Centers. It's an old, yeah. And so these providers are providing wraparound services that are long-term and ongoing. In addition, go back to the last slide. So in addition, we have a centralized delivery of work experiences. So we have paid internships that is a focus that ERCO is our contractor for. So who are we serving and what do they look like when they come into programming? So as you can see, we serve currently, so this is a snapshot in time. Right now, today, there are 565 young people in services with us. They are 100% are low income, and they're not just low income, they're very low income, so below that 30% threshold. In addition, we serve a large population of communities of color, so 75% of the young people that we serve are kids of color. And when they come into the programming, as you can see, basic skills deficient is referring to their inability to read or do math at the 9th grade level. So we're working with young people who are very barriered and need a lot of support to be able to get into career pathway work. So what are the services we're providing? It's a combination, it's a wraparound service, and it's ongoing for up to 3 years. And we are focused on really skill building and development. And this is just kind of a listing of the types. So I want to go deeper into this. We really have a proficiency-based model, and the way I talk about this is don't tell me, show me. So I don't care if your butt has been in a seat and you have a piece of paper that says, I completed work readiness training, see, I'm ready. That doesn't help an employer. I want young people to be able to demonstrate that they can communicate well, that they can problem solve, that they can manage their life circumstances and still show up and get up and go to work. And so we really have a proficiency-based model where we're working on skill building in these areas with young people on an ongoing basis in and outside the classroom. And we do that in really innovative ways. And so it's through contextualizing their learning. So a great example that I'm sure Mr. Mullis and Mr. Kelly will appreciate is that we supported some opportunities. This is one with the Windanor Boat School where we funded the building of 2 sailboats where the young people who participated actually got math credit for participating, and one of the young people who participated actually described it as, I learned how to use the Pythagorean theorem. That means I was able to take something square and make it round. Now that's the kind of skill, that's the kind of problem solving that we want our young workforce to have. Next slide. Another example of that kind of being able to contextualize what you learn in a classroom is through a partnership that we had with ADX. Last weekend, I went there and we had 11 kids learning how to electrify an electric bike, and then they got to keep the bike. So they were learning mechanical and electrical engineering concepts by actually applying the learning. And then again, how many of you had a job when you were young? I did. I was 15 years old when I got my first job. That is not what is happening today. Again, lowest employment rate that we've ever seen in recorded history, and it started being recorded after World War II. So we have a summer employment program called Summer Works, And one of the benefits of Portland Development Commission and co-investing with work systems is that all of the youth that we serve have access to these kinds of opportunities. So we're going to be putting 600 kids to work again this summer, and that's actually what Jordana was referencing, is she's going to get a construction job this summer through Summer Works. So in this program year, we have put 263 young people to work that were co-enrolled in the EOI program with us. And 59 of those opportunities are still in progress. 204 were completed with a 78% successful completion rate. And successful completion means that they actually completed 80% of their planned hours and they got a positive evaluation from their supervisor. So it's not just that they hit some milestone, it's that there was a real evaluation that happened. So how are we doing? We're doing pretty well. This is not reflective, it's not inclusive of the 585 young people. These are of the young people who've reached benchmarks. So we are, as Kate said, in the second year of this program. So to date, this is where we are with milestones as far as young people's achievements. And we're happy to answer any questions, unless Kate had more. Kate has more.
I have a little bit more. One of the questions that has been raised during our briefings, and I just wanted to make sure that we brought this to your attention. So there's been this question, since you made the transition from PDC administering this program and selected new providers to WSI running the workforce development programs, what has been the change, if any, in performance? And while we're still on the early end to really be comparing past performance and future performance, I did just want to bring this here in terms of the people who are being served. The blue shows the original Economic Opportunity Program as administered by PDC and before us, the Bureau of Housing and Community Development. And then the yellow shows what is occurring now with our youth, adult, and micro programs. All of those have been re-RFP'd, and you can see that we're doing even better, at least on this metric of serving people of color, which is a key audience for us as we do this work. Okay, so what are you doing today? And we are getting back to the action before you. In terms of city funds for the Economic Opportunity Program, we get approximately $3.66 million in city funds. Of that, about 2.18 comes from community development block grants. That's the CDBG. Those are federal funds that come to us through the Portland Housing Bureau, and one of your actions today will be to authorize the executive director to sign a contract for us to receive those funds and administer the program. There also is, we also get about almost 1.5 million in general funds from the city, and then we have some foundation funds from the Northwest Area Foundation and a little bit from Multnomah County that goes into the workforce development.
So I'm going to interrupt you here, just especially for Tom. The EOI program was always run by the Housing Bureau because most of the funds come through the CBDG. And when we reorganized and our housing unit went over to their housing unit, the mayor at the time thought, this is kind of illogical for this job training program to be under housing. Doesn't it make more sense that it becomes part of the Economic Development Agency? So it was really a wonderful opportunity for us. And quite honestly, I think it's gotten a lot more visible by being administered by us. The last slide basically showed you Kate and PDC staff ran the program exactly the way that the City Housing Bureau did it until 2012 and 2013. And I think it's pretty impressive, and I congratulate you now for already. It's amazing to see the difference that has been made. And it wasn't without controversy, because when you change providers, there are some winners and there are some losers, but fantastic program.
So the uses of the funds that we get, we in total, make an investment in workforce development through work systems of $2.7 million. I want to really emphasize that one of the key reasons that we made this investment with WSI is that we are able to leverage on the youth side about $2.4 million of youth workforce development. Heather mentioned the work experience program that WSI operates. So we are able to bring more resources to the youth that are served with city dollars by aligning and working with WSI. Similarly, on the adult system, we leverage about $1 million in services that are available and specifically made available to this population of individuals who are going through service through our adult workforce development program around on-the-job training, around occupational skills and vocational training. And so while the utilization of those services may not have been very robust this year while we were ramping up, I expect that over time, our utilization of those dollars and access to those services, which was good this year, will get even better over time. So we invest about $2.7 million in workforce development, and then about $755,000 goes to microenterprise development. And we do administer still a couple of contracts for NPI-related workforce development, and then we have PDC's administrative and personnel costs for the program. So those are the uses of the funds. And this is just reminding you of the actions that are to be taken. 3 resolutions. The first one is to authorize the executive director to sign the contract with PHB for the administration of the program overall and the receipt of community development block grant dollars. And then 2 resolutions authorizing the executive director to enter into adult and youth workforce development contracts with WSI. I would finally note that the city funds, you may be asking, when do the city funds come to us? Later in June, you will be, there's a overall kind of omnibus intergovernmental agreement that will be signed or come before you that has the general funds for this program. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the only other point I would make is obviously this can't be funded with TIF. And you can see that it isn't funded with TIF. But it's great to have it housed here at PDC, and Kate and her staff have done just an absolutely fantastic job. John, questions?
Don't really have any questions, just a good presentation, and I really like all the different ways that you're tracking the individuals and the income, and so what's happening at the other end, not just going in, but coming out. That's important, so thank you.
Commissioner Kelly?
I don't think I have any questions. As we talked about, I'd like to learn more about these programs as time goes on.
Great.
Forward to that.
Okay, so I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 7055, 7056, and 7057. That is authorizing a contract with the City of Portland for the purpose of operating and administering the Economic Opportunity Initiative Program during fiscal year 2014-2015, authorizing a subrecipient contract with Work Systems, Inc. to implement Economic Opportunity Initiative Youth Workforce Development Services during fiscal 2014-2015, and authorizing a subrecipient contract with Work Systems, Inc. to implement Economic Opportunity Initiative Adult Workforce Development Services during fiscal year 2014-2015.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'm going to miss this one.
I'm keeping you involved.
Good. I'd like that. All right. What do you say we take a 5-minute break?
As long as everybody's got the time, yeah.
You got the time? Perfect. Let's do that. We'll come back at 10 after.
Kate? Kate, does this